In this video, we're going to preview the University of Texas. Now, Texas had a good year last year. They broke through and got back to the Final Four for the first time since 2003. In addition, they made a good debut in the SEC, being co-champions with South Carolina. As well, Madison Booker won SEC Player of the Year. Now, questions going into the 2025-26 season. Can they repeat the success of last year with making it to the Final Four and being the SEC champion? Or will there be some regression? We will go through the losses and the gains via the portal and through players graduating and recruiting. But as always, before we start, if you enjoy the content, then please give the video a like. It really helps. And subscribe to the channel. Okay, so let's start with the losses to the Texas roster. So Shea, Holly, and Taylor Jones, they have both graduated. In addition, Aaliyah Moore, she is also out for the 25-26 season because she's going to undergo surgery on both knees and then will return for a redshirt senior year in 26-27. Texas had two leave via the portal. Layla Filia, the guard who came last year from Michigan, she didn't contribute much last year as she had a detached retina, so she has transferred to Syracuse. The other one that's a bigger loss for Texas is Jakalinga Minawintanda. Now, she was playing well last year from Texas, but I sort of saw the writing on the wall for this one, as there was a game where she was benched as a starter as she was late or didn't show up for a shoot-around.
Yeah, it was just a decision we made. We won't go into why I made it. Just it was a decision that I made and made it today in shoot-around. And I'm proud of Justice. She got an opportunity today. Sometimes just being on time at a shoot-around will get you an opportunity, and when you get that opportunity, you got to take advantage of it.
And I was like, ooh, keep an eye on that one. And sure enough, she has transferred to Vanderbilt. But as I always say, the portal taketh, the portal giveth. And Texas got three gifts from the portal. First, they got a big in Bria Cunningham. She's the 6'4" center who transferred in from Arizona. She will help give center depth after they lost Jones. Ashton Judd is a 6'1" guard who can shoot. She shot 37% from three last season. She is coming in from Missouri. The last one is Taya Sidbury. She is 6'1". She spent her freshman year at Utah and then the last 2 years at Boston College. She averaged 12.5 points, 7 rebounds, and shot 42% from the floor last year and 27% from the three-point line. Now, the last addition to the Texas roster is recruit Aaliyah Crump, who is a 6'1" guard. She was rated number 5 by ESPN. She has a very good offensive game. Her defense probably needs a little bit of work to live up to or meet the Texas standards of defense, but she is definitely a good addition. Now, I'm going to break down the Texas roster much like I did for the LSU preview, that being the anchors, the bigs, and then the guards. So the anchors are obviously Roy Harmon and Madison Booker. Harmon is returning for her 5th year. She is a redshirt senior after sustaining her ACL injury in the 23-24 season. Prior to that injury, she was playing the best she'd ever played. Texas played UConn in the 23-24 season, and she was the best player on the court. Not surprisingly, last year early on, you could tell she was a step slow. I thought that was especially clear when they were playing Notre Dame, as she had a hard time staying in front of Hannah Hidalgo. But as the season progressed, her movement got better, but one thing she struggled with last season was her shot. She shot 37% from the floor and 28% from the three-point line. If you look back at her 23-24 season, she shot 40%, but was that just a hot streak over a 14-game stretch? Because in the previous 3 seasons, she has never shot over 30% from three. And before I get killed in the stats,
I know how I feel about stats. Really, stats are for losers. Final scores for winners. And that's really what it's about.
I do realize there are things outside of the stats. I understand the intangibles and that she's a floor general, much in the like of Raven Johnson. As they run the teams, they get the ball up the court, they get the ball to the right player, and they both put amazing ball pressure on the opposition's ball handler. So I understand that, but If you are a small guard and you can't shoot from the outside, it does put more pressure on your teammates. It makes it more difficult to spread the floor. That's the downside, and it makes it very hard to get to the next level if you struggle with your shot. Now, Roy Harmon's on-off numbers are what you'd probably expect. She's -1 per 100 possessions. I guess that's a little bit surprising. But offense, Texas offense is worse when she's on the court. So Texas scores 104.4 points per 100 possession. When she goes off the court, they score 118.6 per 100 possession. So that's a -14.3. Defense, not surprisingly, Texas is better with her on the court. So Texas gives up 82.8 points per 100 with her on the court. And when she goes off, they give up 96 points per 100 possessions. And again, I like Booker. I like having a steady point guard, but those are what you would expect. She's great on defense, good ball pressure, and a good floor general. But yeah, she hurts you a little bit just due to floor spacing. And at times, I think they're better off when they have Preston out there, because she gives them more offensive punch. But we'll get into that when we start going into the guard play. Now, Madison Booker, not surprisingly, gets it done on both sides of the ball. Her overall net rating is 8.3 on offense. Texas scores 108.3. When she's off, they score 102.1. Defense, they give up 85 when she's on the court per 100, and they give up 87.2 when she goes off. Last season, she averaged 16 points per game, shot 46% from the floor, and shot 40% from the three-point line. The thing that drives me crazy with Booker is she just doesn't shoot the three-point shot enough. She shot 1.6 three-pointers last season. And if you shoot threes that well, then you need to take more threes. If you take a look at her versus Sarah Strong, Booker took 7.4 shots per game in the mid-range versus Sarah Strong 0.9, and then three-pointers above the break, Booker took 1.3 shots versus Sarah Strong, who took 3.1. Now, is the lack of three-pointers just because Booker's in love with her mid-range game, or is it an overall Texas strategy that they're just going to get to the rim and keep it in the mid-range? Is that more of a Vic Schaefer type attitude? I'm not sure. Now, let's move on to the bigs. Yes, everything's bigger in Texas, but they did lose Taylor Jones, who they will miss, but they still have Kayla Oldacre, who transferred in from Miami. She averaged 17 minutes and basically shared minutes with Taylor Jones. And Oldacre would bring the offense and Jones the defense. They were almost exact opposites. So on offensive rating, and I should mention these on-off ratings, it's for the SEC, because I figured Texas non-conference, it just skews the numbers. But if it's just SEC, then that helps clarify it. So overall, her net rating was 0.1. So she was even, if you like. But on offense, she would allow Texas to score 112.6 points per 100 when she was on the court. When she went off, Texas would only score 103 points per 100 possession. But it was the exact opposite on defense. So with her on the court, Texas would give up 90.8. And when she went off the court, Texas would give up 81.2. The thing that she really offers is really good rebounding with her on the court. When she was on there, they would get 45% of the offensive rebounds available. When she went off the court, Texas would get 40% of the available offensive rebounds. Now, there is a little bit of an injury cloud around Oldacre. Texas was playing in the Global Jam tournament, and versus Puerto Rico, she went out in the first quarter with a lower leg injury and did not return the rest of the tournament. So I don't have any more information on what the lower leg injury is. Hopefully it's nothing serious, and she will be ready to start the season. Because Oldacre was injured, Bria Cunningham obviously got extended minutes. Now, she's come in from Arizona, where she averaged 23 minutes per game. She's 6'4", so she's a little bit smaller, but well, in comparative to Oldacre, who's 6'6". At Arizona, her net rating was +5 per 100 possessions. On offense, minimal change. Arizona would score 95 points with her on and score 95 points with her off. On defense, Arizona would give up 86.1 points with her on and give up 91.8 points when she was off. Now, if Oldacre is healthy, I would anticipate she starts, but I think they'll share the minutes fairly equally, and it'll be almost like last year. Oldacre will give you a little bit more on offense, and Cunningham would likely give you a little bit more on defense. Now, after Oldacre and Cunningham, Texas has a lot of players that are around that 6'1 sort of wing type players. Justice Carlton's a sophomore. Last season as a freshman, she averaged 11 points per game. She shot 25% from the 3-point line on offense. Texas would score 115.2 points with her on and 110 points when she went off. On defense, Texas would give up 83.6 points with her on and reduced scoring of opponents to 79.3 when she went off. Now, she's sort of a similar player in terms of I think her and Taya Sidbury will be battling over minutes. Sidbury is 6'1 as well. As I mentioned before, at BC last year, she averaged 12.5 points per game, and she shot 27% from the 3-point line. Sidbury's numbers, when I put them into a comparison chart, they look very similar to Anissa Morrow at LSU from last year. Now, I'm not saying she's Anissa Morrow, but their numbers they put up were very similar. One thing that she needs to tighten up is her defense. In the global tournament versus Canada, I saw a few times where they were able to back cut on her, and when you're playing for Vic Schaefer, you have to play tight defense. And at BC, when she was on the court, they gave up 4.8 more points when she was on the court versus when she was off. So that would be a work in progress, but I think it's going to be a good battle between her and Carlton. Now, the last one that fits into this mix is Ashton Judd. She's also 6'1". She's more of a shooter. She's not as athletic as Carlton and Sidbury. At Missouri last year, she averaged 27 minutes per game. She shot 36% from the 3-point line off of 4.8 attempts. So if they put her in, they're looking to get more shooting. Her net rating last year was minus 12.2. On offense, they were actually worse off with her on the court at minus 8.9. And defense, they gave up more as well, 3.3 more points when she was on the court. You could argue that Jordan Lee's a forward as well, but I see her more as a guard. She's 6 foot. She averaged 19 minutes per game last year. She was on the SEC all-freshman team and started 5 games. She led Texas in 3-point makes with 42. She shot 39% from the 3-point line off 2.7 attempts per game. Her net rating was 0. She was plus 2 on offense, but minus 1.7 on defense. But overall, I just think Texas needs to get her more minutes. I think she needs to be in the starting lineup and needs to be getting 25 to 28 minutes a game. The other off guard, if you like, is Aaliyah Crump. She's 6'1", and as I mentioned before, the number 5 recruit. She has a strong offensive game as well, so I could see her subbing in for Lee at times. As she gets better, then you could have a really strong combination with Crump and Lee to boost the offense. In the Global Jam game versus Canada, Crump has a really nice spin move. It's sort of like a spin turnaround jumper. And if she has an open look, she's usually going to knock it down. On defense, she got taken off the dribble a few times, and she'll have to tighten up her defense. As I say before, you want to play for Vic Schaefer, then you need to play defense, and that's what she's going to need to bring to get more minutes on the court. The last guard is Brianna Preston. She's 5'9", and presumably she will be backing up Roy Harmon. She had a good freshman year, averaging 12 minutes per game. She was plus 11.5. On offense, Texas would score 118.9 points when she was on the court, and when she went off, it was 107.8. Again, this is in SEC play. Like Harmon, she's quick. She can get to the basket. She shot 47% from the floor, but only 20% from 3. But yeah, she was a big impact on offense. On defense, she didn't give up much either. So Texas would give up 80 points with her on and 80 points when she went off. So I probably went through Texas parts in too much detail a little bit, but it just shows you how much depth and talent that they have. I suspect the starting lineup will be Oldacre, Sidbury, Madison Booker, Jordan Lee, Roy Harmon. That's their 1 through 5. And then off the bench, they just have so many pieces. They have Preston to fill in for Harmon. They've got Justice Carlton to sub in for Sidbury potentially, and then Crump as well to give them some more instant offense, as well as another shooter in Judd. Cunningham's able to back up Oldacre, and I think hopefully Texas finds out soon that Oldacre's okay. If that's the case, then this is a really good team with a lot of parts that can be put in a lot of different directions. Like Vic Schaefer has the potential to mix and match if he wants to go more offense. He could put Preston out there with Jordan Lee and potentially Crump and Madison Booker with Oldacre and get scoring. If we take a look at the core four numbers from the SEC last year, it's clear Texas and South Carolina were the most dominant in the conference. So South Carolina was plus 32, Texas was plus 21, and South Carolina really had it on Texas in terms of offense, scoring 114 points per 100 possession versus Texas 107 points per 100. But Texas does a lot of other things really, really well, which includes bludgeoning teams on the offensive boards. Texas got 42.8% of the available offensive rebounds, which was first in the SEC. Another thing they do well, which wasn't surprising, is turnover opponents, as they were second in the SEC, only behind Ole Miss, as 22.5% of their opponent possessions ended in turnover. And of course, it's a bit Captain Obvious. I don't need stats to point out that Texas is good. The real question with Texas is when they face off against the elite teams, are they going to be able to break through like in Final Four games and on the road in those tough road games? Because they put so much pressure on Madison Booker to score and do everything. When they were in the Final Four and she got into foul trouble, they were done. So I think the development of Lee and Crump is going to be crucial for Texas just to take some of that pressure off of Booker. But the other thing that concerns me with Texas is just the style of play. The 10% three-pointers from above the break, that's just not enough threes taken in my opinion. But who the heck am I to tell Vic Schaefer what to do? But it does seem like a wishbone offense. If they get down by a substantial amount, then the game's practically over because there's no way for them to catch up. At least that's what it feels like to me. And hence why I feel it's really important they get Jordan Lee and Aaliyah Crump going this season. Lastly, the schedule. So in the non-conference, they're playing North Carolina as well as Baylor. Those should be some pretty good games. SEC is going to be a gauntlet as always. They have South Carolina on the road and Tennessee on the road. In addition, the opponent they play twice is LSU versus South Carolina, who gets to play Alabama twice. So repeating as SEC champions might be a tough task when you consider South Carolina on the road, plus Tennessee on the road, and LSU twice. Yeah, I sort of go with South Carolina, I think, is my favorite. But as long as they get toughened up and ready for the tournament, that's the main idea, and I think they'll be able to do that. They have all the parts to win a championship. The question is, will they be able to put it together, and will the games go their way so they can win the championship in a one-game scenario? All right, now it's over to you for your comments, your poison. It's all welcome. Do you see Texas as a Final Four team? Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.